Hello and welcome to the fourth module in the Behaviour Change Intervention Ontology training program. So the training program as a whole it aims to help potential users of the ontology to understand what the ontology is, how it works, how to use it in their research, and for those who are interested, how to develop and improve it. And this module sets out what we call the component ontologies or sub-ontologies within the Behaviour Change Intervention Ontology or BCIO that cover different aspects of behaviour change. And within that, we have the Behaviour Change Intervention Scenario, as it's called, and the evaluation of behaviour change interventions. Before doing this module, you are advised to have a look at Module 1, which is what are ontologies and why they're helpful. Module 2, which is how can ontologies be used in behavioural science. And Module 3, which is what is the Behaviour Change Intervention Ontology. And after this module, we hope that you would be able to review the scope of the BCIO, list the component ontologies within the BCIO, and to briefly describe what each of them contains. So let's go to the first learning objective, which is reviewing the scope of the BCIO. So just to remind you, the BCIO is an ontology that aims to cover everything that you might wish to say about what we call a behaviour change intervention scenario and its evaluation, and that includes also the reporting of the evaluation in a paper or study report. The BCIO can be used when developing interventions and study protocols, writing papers, conducting evidence synthesis, and building models and theories. And the goal is to ensure that the constructs that you refer to are clearly and consistently defined and labelled in a way that maximises understanding and comparability across studies. The term that we use in ontologies for this, and it's a very important term, is interoperability. The domains covered by the BCIO are, let's first of all look at the behaviour change intervention scenario. Okay, that consists of behaviour change intervention content, what are the active ingredients of the behaviour change intervention, its delivery, and any tailoring that might be taking place. It also includes the behaviours that may be targeted by interventions, what we call outcome behaviours. It includes engagement with the interventions. We need to code and annotate and describe the way in which people interact with the intervention. We also need to be able to describe the populations that may be targeted by a behaviour change intervention, bearing in mind here that in ontology speak, population refers to any group of individuals, not just a whole population of a country. It could be anything from 2 or more individuals that are targeted by an intervention. And then it also includes the settings and temporal contexts in which the intervention may be located, and the mechanisms of action by which an intervention may have its effect on behaviour. And then the other side of it is the research study methods and reporting, and here we're talking about the evaluation studies themselves, their findings, and their reports. Okay, so let's go on to learning objective 2, which is what are the component ontologies within the BCIO. And here you will see what we call the upper level component ontology. This is the thing that covers the whole scope of the BCIO, but in very broad terms. And what I've done here is to put in thick blue circles the entities which refer to component ontologies that we've completed or are nearing completion at this point. The other circles refer to things that we're working on and will complete at a future date, or which we don't need to have a component ontology for them as they are because we've got component ontologies for the bits that make them up. For example, where we have, BCI content, we've got component ontologies that describe the two aspects of that, which are the behavior change techniques and the dose. So let's just have a quick look at the component ontologies and list them one by one. First of all, we have the upper level, which you can see here. Then we have what we call the human behavior ontology, or HBO, which covers the outcome behavior component within the behavior change intervention ontology. And then we have the behavior change technique ontology, which is a development from the behavior change technique taxonomy V1, which has already been used extremely widely in behavior change research. So this is kind of like the next version of that. And then we have the behavior change intervention dose ontology, which is a small ontology, which just covers the amount of intervention content that's delivered. We have the behavior change intervention schedule of delivery ontology, the style of delivery ontology, the mode of delivery ontology, the source ontology, the engagement ontology. And then we have the behavior change intervention population ontology, in which we can characterize the population, the setting ontology, and then finally the mechanism of action ontology. And these are the ones that we've developed so far. And obviously this is work that's ongoing and will continue hopefully indefinitely into the future as we extend the BCIO into other areas. So now let's just quickly look at the contents of the component ontologies and review those. And I've already alluded to this very briefly, but just to go through them. The upper level contains the broad classes that are needed to characterize behavior change intervention scenarios and the evaluations of behavior change interventions and the way they're reported. The human behavior ontology component covers the classes and the attributes of human behavior that we need in order to precisely characterize a given behavior, whether it's an outcome behavior or in fact a behavior that's being described for some other purpose. And then we have the behavior change technique ontology, which, as I've said, is a development of the BCTT V1, or behavior change technique taxonomy version 1, which extends the taxonomy, clarifies many of the items within it, and also, as you will see in a later module, it splits some of the categories up into ones that are more specific. Then we have the dose ontology, which is a small ontology which just characterizes the amount of intervention content that's being delivered. And then we have the schedule of delivery ontology, which covers the timing and patterning of delivery of activities that make up a behavior change intervention, when it starts, when it finishes, how long it goes on for, how many sessions there might be, or how many opportunities for interaction there might be, and so on. Then we have the style of delivery ontology, which covers the manner in which the content of a behavior change intervention is delivered. Is it delivered in a very formal manner or an informal manner? And then we have the mode of delivery ontology, which covers what you might call the sort of channels of delivery for the intervention. For example, is it delivered face-to-face? Is it delivered at a distance? Is it text messaging? Is it through a poster? Is it through some digital channel? Otherwise, we can think of it as a sort of mechanism by which we deliver the content of the behavior change intervention. Then we have the source ontology, which, where applicable, covers the kind of person or agent or organization that is delivering the intervention, for example, a health professional, nurse, doctor, psychologist, or whatever. Then we have the behavior change intervention engagement ontology, and this covers the extent and the manner in which a target population interacts with or is reached by an intervention. So it covers all those things relating to what proportion of the target audience actually ever got exposed to the intervention, and if they did get exposed to the intervention, how did they interact with it, either behaviorally, cognitively, or emotionally. And then we have the population ontology, which is a large ontology covering many, many features of the populations that might be targeted by behaviour change intervention. And many of the entities in that ontology are ones that actually would be very useful in describing any population in behavioural science. And then penultimately, we have the setting ontology, which covers the location, the environments, and the facilities in which behaviour change interventions delivered. And then finally, the mechanism of action ontology, which is a very large ontology covering a lot of the ways in which a behaviour change intervention might influence behaviour, either through, for example, changing emotional processes, or the way we think about things, or the environment in which we find ourselves. So that's the component ontologies within the BCIO. And what we've covered in this brief training module is just reviewing the scope of the BCIO, the component ontologies, and what they contain.